Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the day 1 update for my Archmage Ball Lightning Hierophant. Now, this is probably the smoothest league starter I've had so far, and I haven't really bossed much yet, but I've basically unlocked the game within 24 hours, which is a big deal for me because I'm very chill when it comes to it. I read chat a lot, I look at people's POBs, I'm just kind of cruising through, and it was just an absolute blast. However, I've also had some people who had problems in terms of defensiveness, and while I did say that this build isn't the tankiest, it's definitely not that squishy. However, I was interested because I felt very good about it, and if you look at my stats right here, I died 18 times, and I think 14 or 15 times was to this keystone right here, Extreme Archaeology, with all the mods up and everything, right, with extra map modifiers and whatnot, which I shouldn't really be in with my current gear level. So I didn't really understand it, but I asked people for POBs so I can kind of problem fix for some people. So we're going to go over that right now. Before we go into that list even, I added some more stuff because I've seen some more POBs from people who sent them to me. I think the biggest issue for some people were actually starting maps where there is this weird like transition period where you have to respec into mana, but you also have to hit unwavering stance and you also have to hit instant leech. So I'm going to rework the POBs slightly for it to make a little bit more sense, because I've seen some people who don't get their passive points. So definitely get all your passive points. I've seen people who are, I don't know, in white maps at level 64, 65, which I guess I don't really factor in for people who have like racing levels. I'm usually in maps at like 68. I'm even maybe even heist after. But just so you know, if it feels awkward for you to play currently and you just replaced your Jade Flask and everything, the following list is really important, especially the ailment immunity. But make sure you have unwavering stance and you have instant leech, and give the build a chance before you throw it away. If you're happy or fine with your defenses, you can skip this completely and just look at the gear at the end, but I think this is really important, so I'm gonna address that first. Now, one thing that I think I didn't make clear enough is how important ailment immunity is on this build. Now, the reason this Pantheon is so important is because chill and shock, the way the math works, depends on how much HP you have. So your thresholds are going to be completely screwed up, especially when you don't have any damage reduction, right? You still have a ton of recovery, you have a ton of raw HP, but you don't ever want to get shocked or ever want to get chilled. So that is super, super important. Almost every POB that felt squishy had this problems. This is solved with a swap from Wrath to Purity of Elements. However, what's even more important is that you don't just go for Divine Blessing, you actually go for Eternal Blessing if you're going Purity, because you want it to always be up. You don't want to forget about pressing it and then you're not res capped. So what you want to do is you want Purity of Elements inside Eternal Blessing, and then what you do is with Clarity, you're going to put that on Arrogance, so on your HP. Now, once you have your Uberlap with Illuminate the Devotion, plus you have the 50% reduced effective chill from Soul of the Brine King, plus you then also have the 60% reduced effective shock from Soul of Garukan. From that point onwards, you don't need Purity of Elements anymore. And even better, if you already have an Impulsas, you don't even need that reduced effective shock at all. The second problem people had was towards the start of maps. When you did not have Instant Leech and you didn't have Stun Immunity, it felt kind of awkward. Now, it still felt probably okay from what I guess, because you have Soul of the Brine King, but you still want to be fully stun immune. But you also need this Instant Leech. So yes, until you have this path and you have this path, maybe you even leave out some other nodes in between. Those have to be rushed ASAP. After that, we had no Grace and no Jade Flags during campaign. This is pretty self-explanatory. During the campaign, you're not Mana Stacker. You're basically just a normal spellcaster. And all you do is you stack life and you get evasion from Grace and Jade Flask. That's roundabout all you can do. So during the campaign, you basically follow the leveling guide and you do this right here. That is about what you do as a caster, and there's not much more to it. If you don't use those tools, some people have said they should have gone Conviction of Power. If you really want to do that for the 16% Fizz damage reduction and the extra res, go for it. I have played this character multiple times with Jade Flask and Grace, and I've never really felt bad about it. But if you have to do it, then go for it. Another thing is Chaos Resistance. This is something that I've seen a lot of people neglect, me included, by the way. I'm currently on minus 17 Chaos Res, and I don't really feel it ever since I got the Energy Shield Mastery. However, this is something I definitely want to work on, so don't neglect your Chaos Res. that is also one of the reasons why you don't want to respec into the quad curse version or the crit version too early, because then now you have all these uniques on that don't have resistances. For example, instead of this ring, I'm now all of a sudden going to have an anathema, or instead of this ring, right? So it's just a bad look. You're also going to lose your mind spiral. That is bad. Now, there's also determination version, which I talked about in my endgame version. However, I do not think that that version is good without energized armor. So once you have that, you can try it out for yourself. Once again, you don't need purity anymore. You can decide between more damage or armor version. So definitely check that out as well. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to go for it, because once I'm in the curse version and I have enfeeble, it should feel fine. But if I really feel like I'm too squishy or something, then I'm maybe going to go for it. Now, another mistake that I've seen is actually go for a too early crit transition. Once again, coming from the misunderstanding that stun immunity is like something nice to have. It isn't. It is absolutely mandatory. So I saw somebody, for example, cutting out all of this here and not having anything against stun immunity all of a sudden. They just went full crit and it felt bad for them. And that is a pity. Just to reiterate this, the only way to get into this crit pathing is with immutable force, and you need stun and block recovery. If you can, you want to get 961 stun and block recovery. That is the cutoff point. There's a breakpoint right there that is going to make a huge difference. And if you see right here, that is right now going to cost you round about 1 divine. However, you can go lower, because you can also substitute this with 30% from the Soul of the Brine King on top. So then you only need 931 from the jewel. Also, there is a reason why I did not swap before like level 95, 96 to the crit version. I'm still not on the crit version. Not anytime soon, and that is because you don't have enough points. You have to think about it this way. You need to get enough mana, enough life, also flat mana and flat life from the levels to compensate for the fact that you're not going to have Mind Spiral anymore, right? You're not going to have another Amethyst anymore. You need all those suffixes on all those items, so it is actually quite expensive to do so. So don't focus too much on that crit version anytime soon. Another thing I almost forgot about is you have no corrupted blood immunity. Now, yes, if you have it on Flask, that is kind of nice, but the best case scenario would be, and that is true for every build, by the way, every single build, is you have corrupted blood, can it be afflicted? The second implicit, forget about it, maimed, doesn't matter. But what this basically is maximum mana and corrupted blood cannot be afflicted. You have two 1-point jewels here that even if your jewel kind of sucks, you can still chuck it in. It's just 1 point. They're very efficient. Make it so one of them has corrupted blood, cannot be inflicted on you. Most of people's deaths comes from that. But okay, I'll quickly show you a plateau map right here. Tier 16, few mobs. Let's just do this, yeah. Doesn't really matter either way. Let's just pop in right here. I'm going to get some sounds on. So basically, this build plays very, very simple. You have your Ball Lightning, you have your Sigil of Power, which you only really put down against harder enemies or stationary targets. You have your Arcanist Brand that you only put on against harder targets, and you have your Frostblink of Wintry Blast. So this is how it looks like. Now, you can also support this with... Spelloak if you really want to, but this is how it looks like. So Spelloak is going to make it a lot less like controllable, but it is going to make it faster. You're going to kind of feel like Flicker Strike, but yeah, this is how it works. So for example, here I can pop it down, the Sigil of Power, because I know what's going to happen. As a 6-link, probably going to sell for like 20C or something. So yeah, we're just popping around and we are attacking with our Ball Lightning. With this right here. All right. Let's wait for it. Okay. So whenever you get the opportunity, put down your other skills. Get a little bit more safety. But yeah, in terms of tier 16s, there's not really all that much big of a deal. It's obviously not a tank, but it can hold its own against most things. Next up, I obviously have to do Exarch Eater. And after that, we're going to do everything up to Feared, basically, over probably the next 1 or 2 days. We'll have to see. But yeah, this is about how it plays. There's a lot more fast-paced than you might think from the campaign, for example. That's not because of projectile speed, that's just because of how fast you can travel. So we're just going to focus this guy. It is hexproof, so we don't have conductivity, unfortunately. But it doesn't really matter, because we can't really die with the leech. I'm just going to stand here a little bit. Let's just see if we can die. I can also activate my flask. Nothing really happens. I can kind of just stand there. And this is kind of where you're going to be when you reach this sort of level. Really important. Also, something I saw a lot of people not get is Mind Spiral. It's super cheap right now. And That mana recoup is going to make a big difference for your sustain in general. Do not think about mana regen that much. Currently, I don't have a single mana regen roll on anything. And as you can see right here, my mana is barely going down. And that is just because my energy shield is protecting it. It's just never really, like, nothing is ever really happening. Right? So yes, while stuff can hit me, it's never really doing anything. All right, let's actually go for the expedition here. So this is very, very rippy. This is basically a one-shot expedition. So we're going to see how that goes real quick. We have our Sigil of Power down. And we get the explosions going. I would not really recommend doing this before you have an Impulsa, to be fair. But in general, yeah. Even against these like high, heavy hitters, there's just not all that much of a problem. All right, now let's go over all my gear. The first one is Valakos Sign. The only reason I still have this one is because it has 25% chance to shock and okay increased damage. I don't really need the leech anymore because I do have Illuminated Devotion. Later, I will get the leech from my gloves, hopefully, so then I can respec into Conviction of Power. But right now, Illuminated Devotion would already do that. But the chance to shock helps out a lot with Impulsas. Now, once you're in the crit version, you're going to shock way more, obviously. And then Impulsas is going to be way more consistent. Right now, it's still super, super good, as you could see. My first ring here is basically just something I bought. It has mana, it has life, it has cast speed, and then I just crafted something on. Really important, Amethyst ring, Chaos Res. As for my wand, this one I crafted myself. I bought a Profane wand, and then I crafted with Screaming Essences of Woe. Obviously, you could afford higher ones, but I don't think it's worth it. This is an absolute bare bones wand. Now, the usual outcome would be you spam it, you hit any sort of mana, and then you craft on cast speed, and then it's gone. It's like a 1 in 9 or 1 in 10 to hit like a tier 4 or better mana. In this case, what happened is I already have the cast speed, but now I don't have a craft anymore. So it's kind of the same. The fire damage to spells, the burning damage, and the int is completely worthless. So it's basically a 3-stat wand. The second one here, I got a good buy here. This had mana and then just cold res. Even cold res is fine. Any sort of res is pretty cool. And then I unveiled, because this one was already veiled. It was probably something somebody dropped, hopefully, dropped from Betrayal. And I unlocked the spell damage mana regen, which is basically guaranteed. And then you craft on the cast speed. So yeah. Most importantly, if you want to go Frostblink of Wintry Blast and you want this to feel good, you need as much cast speed as possible. Don't just look into your POB and see what's more damage, spell damage or cast speed or whatever. Cast speed will make the build feel so much better. Then we have Mind Spiral. The most important mod here is the damage taken recouped as mana, followed by the maximum mana as extra energy shield. Those are really important. And also, if you can get a little bit higher mana, that's also cool. Once again, no downside because we're not leeching whatsoever. No mana anyways. It's your best bet for a helmet, and it's super, super cheap. They're like 1 or 2 chaos right now. As for boots, I just upgraded to this one recently. If you want a little bit of a trick, if you're fine with 25% movement speed, you're going to get boots like this. I bought this one for, I think, 7 chaos or something. So yeah. Also a good one is, in order to cap your chaos res or get some chaos res, if you have an open suffix, you can always craft hybrid chaos plus cold lightning fire. Now my gloves are pretty dog shit. I thought I was lucky to get this fracture base, but then I didn't really have money to craft it anyways. I just kept the lightning res and the dexterity. Attack speed is completely useless, and I just crafted on life, and that's that. Probably going to try and get some implicits on it at some point. Same here. I wouldn't want the lightning res. I would want like action speed or movement speed. My belt, this one I bought for like 5 chaos, a little bit of flash charge to stand. Not that much res. I would definitely like a little bit more res. 5-link Impulsas. I didn't even try 6-link hit. Who knows? Maybe I'm just going to try Tainted or Refusings later. My Amulet is pretty nice. I bought this one for, I think, 4 chaos. It has good cast speed. It has mana and then crafted life. Otherwise, not really much. Nothing here matters. Don't forget about the annoying Mind Drinker for the mana on kill. As for flasks, they're completely trash, but I'm trying to upgrade them soon. I'm probably also going to get a Taste of Hate, hopefully, at some point. Now, this is just a life flask with Corrupted Blood immune, but I'm already Corrupted Blood immune on the Jewel. I have a Divine Mana flask, which I didn't even craft, actually. I just realized. I have a Quartz flask with nothing. Yeah, this is pretty pathetic. I understand. The only thing nice here in early maps was the Granite flask. I think I also have that in my early POB. It definitely helped a lot with some physical hits. But later in red maps, this doesn't do anything. So just throw all of these flasks basically away. One thing I also want to say is that I don't think you need Quartz flask. with the way that this build plays, you never really need phasing, so I'm definitely going to remove that in my endgame version as well. I don't think I'm actually going to stick with it. As for my gem setup, it's pretty much the same as in the video. I don't have Spell Echo yet, so that would be my last support. I'm not using Pinpoint, like I said, until I have like a lot of damage. So it's nice. My Ball Lightning still level 19. Clarity I have here on Arrogance, once again, because I have Eternal Blessing, because I want my Purity to always be up. I've increased duration with Sigil of Power, which isn't really necessary. You could also put Cull onto your Frostblink. Right here, I just have faster casting Frostblink. Now, big deal also is Arcane Cloak. A lot of people were asking about missing gems. One of the missing gems was just automation, because it wasn't in PoB yet. So I'm automating Arcane Cloak. If you don't want to, you can also press it. I have Call to Arms and Enduring Cry, if people are asking. That was the missing gem link. Also wasn't in PoB at the time. Getting quality on this one is a big deal because it gets 40% CDR on that. Now, Enduring Cry was okay. The endurance charges weren't up that much while mapping, but they were up during longer boss fights, especially invitations. So that was very nice. But in endgame, I'm going to cut it again anyways because I'm going to go Conviction of Power. Now, on the passive tree, everything's pretty much up to date. The only thing I did is replace the Lightning Mastery with the Shock Spread. So Impulsa works a little bit more, but you should not take this if you don't have Impulsa. It's pretty much useless. And otherwise, I actually don't know. I'm keeping this for a little bit longer than I wanted to because I still need the Dex and the Strength. Same with the Precision, but those are all going to be gone once my gear gets better. And yeah, I think everything else is basically the same as I said. And if you guys are asking what my next upgrades will be, most likely will be a Cluster Jewel, large Cluster Jewel that is. Then at some point, I'm going to go into the Quad Curse version, which I already talked about with Kitavas first. Then eventually into Crit, once I get really good gear. All my suffixes are used to the fullest. I get Dexterity on gear. I get Mana Regen on gear. Everything I need in order to not feel bad once I have to replace Mind Spiral and Valakos. So whenever I do the next upgrade, this might actually not happen yet. I might still be non-crit. We'll see. And after that, I'll grab some Awakened Gems. If Lightning Pen is super cheap, I might even do it earlier. But Awakened Spell Echo is probably going to be massively expensive. But yeah, with that being said, I also upgraded some stuff on Maxroll. So if you're currently following along and you haven't refreshed in a while, definitely refresh. I'm always doing a little bit of work in there, so it should be fine. Otherwise, I hope everybody had a great league start. I hope you can get through that little hurdle at the start where you get into white maps and you don't have instant leech yet. You maybe don't have stun immunity yet. Definitely keep pushing. This build is very good. It was probably among the best league starters I've ever played. Like I said, I've never had such a smooth progression all the way to red maps. Maybe this video could help you out a little bit if you are having problems. But with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.